إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. وبعد. We begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the exalted, the sublime, the most merciful, and the bestower of all mercy. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to guide, none can lead astray. And whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to leave astray, none can guide. And I testify that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one true God, the only one deserving in all of existence of our complete unconditional love, obedience, and worship. And I also testify that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was his final prophet and messenger, sending peace and blessings upon him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and his wives and his family members and his companions, and all those who choose to follow their footsteps until the day of judgment, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst them. Allahumma ameen. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the opportunity on this blessed day of Jumu'ah, of Friday. We thank Him for granting us the opportunity to come here to the masjid, His house, and devoting some time to worship Him, to hear His words, His revelation, and the teachings of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is a huge blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we were speaking about in the previous weeks, we're continuing with the topic, the concept of devoting oneself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, embracing the concept of religiosity, as they call it, to renew the drive in ourselves to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, embark and continue on this journey of coming close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and succeeding in our lives, fulfilling the purpose of our existence. And today, in these few blessed moments of this sermon, this khutbah, we want to delve into yet another hadith that is part of this journey. And in reality, all of our revelation is about this journey, the journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the purpose of our existence. And just like any endeavor that we want to embark on, any task that we want to fulfill, there are certain steps that will help us do that, and certain steps that will hold us back. There are certain pitfalls on this path, failures, and there are certain tricks or methods to ensure success. Just like with everything, if you wanted to pick up a new hobby or take on a certain task, if you search online, you'll come with lists, plenty of lists. And this is a recent trend in terms of article writing or giving advice, to put it into a list. 5 pitfalls when starting your own business. And you read that so you don't fall into it. Or 6 steps to necessary to fixing your engine, or whatever it may be. And likewise, the best of teachers, the most knowledgeable of men, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the one whose source of knowledge was not an article or a couple of hours or days or years of research even, but the source of his knowledge was direct revelation from the all-knowledgeable, the all-knowing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us a list. And this was a very common practice of his sallallahu alaihi wasallam when teaching. He would give us lists because it's easy to remember, easy to recall, easy to put in front of you, to number in your head and to recall it when you need it. So he gave us a list, things to do, things not to do, things that will save you and things that will destroy you. So pay very close attention. Lend me your attention for these short moments. Memorize these 6 things. Put them in front of you. And most importantly, what I want you to do here in this khutbah is to put yourself in these 6 categories. An event that happened in your life, an outlook that you have, a course of action or something that you said. Put them into these 6 categories. See what you need to eliminate and see what you need to acquire in terms of these traits that the Prophet ﷺ is giving us. Here are the 6 qualities, the 6 actions that he gave us, ﷺ, the 6 concepts. He said, ﷺ, ثلاث منجيات وثلاث مهلكات. 3 actions that will destroy you, and 3 actions that will save you. 3 acts of salvation and 3 acts of destruction. He said, صلى الله عليه وسلم, فأما المنجيات فتقوى الله في السر والعلانية والقول بالحق في الرضا والسخط والقسط في الغنى والفقر. As for the actions that will save you, actions of salvation, he gave us 3 of them, صلى الله عليه وسلم. 3 in this one hadith, even though there's much more. He says the piety, the consciousness of Allah, the fear and love of Him, whether you are in public or in private. And to speak with the truth, to support the truth, to speak only the truth, whether you are content or discontent, whether you are happy or you are angry. And finally, to be moderate, whether you are rich or you are poor. These 3 concepts will save you. And then he said, صلى الله عليه وسلم, وأما المهلكات فشح مطاع وهوى متبع وإعجاب المرء بنفسه. He says, as for the 3 actions that will destroy you, 3 acts of destruction, they are miserliness that is obeyed, and desires that are followed, and for the person to be impressed by themselves, to be arrogant. So again, pay attention to these 6 categories. Find yourself within them. See what you can do, what approach you can take to build the 3 that save you, and what you can do to eliminate the 3 that would destroy you. First, he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the things that save you, acts of salvation, the piety, the consciousness, the awareness, the love, obedience, and fear of Allah. Taqwa means all of these things. And he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether you are in public or you are in private. And he mentioned this, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because it's harder in private. It's easy to put on a show. It's easy to dress a certain way in front of the people. It's easy to come and pray in congregation once or twice or a few times or even during the week. But to uphold the commitment even when you're in private, that's true taqwa. This is true piety. This is what it means when someone is conscious of Allah. That doesn't matter when or where or who, they are always the same person. They are always aware of Allah. They're always aware of His commandments, staying away from His prohibitions. This is the true believer. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said, اتَّقِ اللَّهَ حَيْثُمَا كُنْتَ. Fear Allah, be obedient towards Him, be dutiful towards Him, no matter when and where you are. It shouldn't matter what the season is. It doesn't matter who is around you. It doesn't matter the situation. The rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the most stable constant in my life. This is the standard I hold myself to at all times, at all places. So he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this will save you. This will be a salvation. How? How will the piety and the consciousness, the awareness and the fear of Allah save you? Read every single story in the Quran and Sunnah. That's basically what it is. That piety, consciousness of Allah will save you. He didn't say from what? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never said from what. He said, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever fears Allah, obeys Him, Allah will cause for him a way out. Of what? He left it open because you fill in the blank. A way out of your financial issues. A way out of your marital issues. A way out of your business issues. Whatever is plaguing you. Whatever is harming you. Whatever is ailing you, holding you back. A hurdle in your path. Difficulty you wish to overcome. Your solution is in taqwa. Your solution is in obeying Allah to the best of your ability. Your solution is in fearing Allah to the best of your ability. Your solution is in keeping your ties with your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it will save you. What is his story, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Him and the believers that accepted Islam with him in Mecca. What did they need? They needed a new family. They needed a new country. Their entire city had turned against them. Their families were the ones torturing them and leading the campaign of oppression against them. But they stuck to the revelation. They stuck to their belief. They stuck to it despite the adversity and the difficulty, the starvation and the boycott and the death that they faced, all just because they wanted to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He revealed. And what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? After 13 years, He opened the heart of the people of Medina. They told them, we will be the family that you're missing. We will be the country that supports you that you do not have. Come take of the wealth and the land that you need. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving that to you. And what is the story of all the prophets? Look at the story of Ismail alayhi salam and Ibrahim alayhi salam and their family. Struggling, going from land to land. When you know the story, we abandoned them in Mecca before it was Mecca. What did they need? They needed food and drink and a support system, a community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent that. He sent to them food and drink and a tribe to settle there and establish the city of Mecca, the greatest city to ever be on the face of the earth. This was because of their taqwa. They stuck to their duty. She asked Ibrahim alayhi salam, Hajar alayhi salam, she asked him, where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you leaving us? There's no food, there's no drink, there's no towns. He said, he didn't answer. So she realized and she said, is this a command from Allah? When he said yes, she said, he will not forsake us. The taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never lead to your demise. It will never lead to you being left hanging. It will never lead to your needs being unfulfilled, because it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who you are obeying. It is Allah who you are fearing. It is Allah who you're keeping your duty towards. Why would He leave you hanging? Why would He leave you to your own devices? Why would He then abandon you? This is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. And likewise all of the prophets and all of the righteous. Too many stories to mention in just one gathering. Every single story in the Quran, every single prophet, a story of people who came with taqwa, promoted it, taught it, and people who accepted and then others who rejected. The people who accepted were saved. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَجَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. We saved those who believed and had piety and had the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. كَذَلِكَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نُنْجِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And thus he says after the story of Yunus alayhi salam, who was swallowed by the whale, stuck in darkness, no way out of his predicament. And he realized his mistake, he made istighfar, and he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he acknowledged his weakness and his own oppression of himself. Taqwa. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him. And then he says, and likewise, it is a right upon us, meaning upon Allah, it's his duty. Something he has to do that he wrote upon himself, that no one's forcing him to do, but he wrote upon himself. Likewise, it is upon us to save the righteous, to save the believers, to grant them salvation. It was narrated about Muhammad ibn al-Qasim, rahimahullah, the Muslim commander who conquered Southeast Asia in its entirety. Any Muslim from Pakistan or Bangladesh or Afghanistan or anywhere east, Iran and everywhere east of Iran is Muslim because of his endeavors, is Muslim because of his conquest and the army that he led. It was narrated that he had encountered a particularly large army of the Persian Empire. And in it they had 80 elephants that were causing the horses of the Muslims to panic. They were unable to keep them in formation, they were unable to keep them in line, and the army itself was about to crumble facing this onslaught of the Persian army. So he said, it's narrated about him that he sent messengers seeking help from the surrounding cities. Send us more troops, we need more, we can't do this on our own. And very little came. They did not respond to him very strongly. And when they tried to muster the forces, they realized they would not be able to. The horses were not being controlled. The elephants were causing the whole army to fall apart out of fear. This is something they've never seen. This is something they've never heard of. So when this happened and he realized things are falling out of his control, he's unable to do anything else. He called for help and he's stuck. He sat on the side and he began to repeat to himself, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power and there is no might. There is no success. There's no endeavor that can be started or undertaken except through, with, and by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after some time had passed, an intense heat came upon the land that they were on, and the elephants all succumbed to it, and they became utterly exhausted. They sat at the water and they refused to move when the Persians tried to control them. And so the Muslim army was able to regroup now that the elephants are just completely out of the picture. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did. He is able. He didn't have to send birds to bombard them like he did to Ashab al-Fil once upon a time. Simple, the heat came and overcame the entire army, and their number one weapon was now useless. And the Muslims were granted victory by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not just the righteous, not just the prophets, not just the ayat and ahadith. Taqwa saves is your story as well. That is your experience. You can add to that story. You can add to that concept. I'm sure you know of yourself and others around you situations where I left the haram and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided. I turned away from this door because I knew it was displeasing to Allah, and He opened 50 others. How often does that happen? Because He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, He's telling us, out of the things that will save you is having piety, having taqwa, consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you're in public or in private. The second thing that He mentioned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, قول الحق or قول بالحق في الرضا والسخط, to speak the truth whether you are content or discontent, whether you are happy or angry. And He mentioned that, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because it's harder when you're angry. You can support the truth, and the truth is the truth, and the ayat and the hadith, and this is the true teachings, this is what Allah revealed, when it's going fine, when it's in your favor. But what about when it costs you something? What about when you have to give? What about when you have to sacrifice? What about if it goes against your personal preference, your desires? Will you still be as encouraged and enthusiastic and devoted to the laws of Allah? This is the question. This is true piety. This is why He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the truest of faith, the most sincere iman, is for a person to love what Allah loves and hate what Allah hates. His own personal preferences and desires have no say in what he says or does. It's only based upon the revelation of Allah. He becomes a vessel of the will of Allah, like we said last week, the hadith where He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when He loves a servant, He becomes their eyes and their ears and their hands and their feet. Meaning these things don't perform in any way except that it's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do we speak the truth? Do we teach our children to speak the truth? To live by the truth, irrespective of consequences, irrespective of how I feel, of what I have to gain or lose? The truth is the truth. I live and speak and act and die accordingly. Do we teach our children that? Does the Muslim Ummah know that? It doesn't. And the proof of that is every single Muslim country. The proof of that is the Muslim community. Because if this was truly in place, the truth is the truth no matter what, there would be no dhulm, there would be no oppression, there would be no taking the rights of others, there would be no shortchanging your brother or sister, or backbiting them or harming them. And the Muslim Ummah would be in an entirely different situation. So He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it will save you to speak the truth no matter what. It may not save you here physically. You may be tormented and oppressed and killed. But speaking the truth will save you. It will be the salvation for you in the hereafter. Perhaps for others in this dunya as well. So speak the truth regardless of the consequences. It was narrated that the Prophet ﷺ had sent Abdullah ibn Rawaha to collect the dues from the people of Khaybar. And as you know, the people of Khaybar, the Jewish tribe, some miles outside of Medina, they had contract after contract with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ that they broke. Contract to be allied with Al-Medina and the Muslims, and they broke countless contracts, and they supported assassination attempts against the Prophet ﷺ, trying to destabilize the Medina society every opportunity that they got. And they went to war with him ﷺ as well. So after all of that, he organized a campaign against them, and Khaybar was besieged, and at the end of the siege they said, let us go. We're sorry. And because they had constantly broken their oaths, he told them, you will be allowed to remain. You will not be exiled or harmed. But on the condition that you give some of the produce, a percentage of it, to the Muslims every single year. So this was the deal that they had. So he sent, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abdullah ibn Rawaha to collect the dues every year. So when he came to them, and he's inspecting the crops and seeing what they have yielded for the year, they present him with a small box of women's jewelry from their woman. And they told him, this is simply a gift for you. So take it easy. Take it easy in counting the crops. You're supposed to take 20%, maybe take 18 or 17. Or you could tell the Prophet ﷺ, he's not here, right? This year there wasn't as much crops, so the percentage is lower. Just hook us up, help us out here. And this is for you. So he told them, and he spoke to them very strongly. He said, radiallahu anhu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that you are the most despised people on the face of the earth to me. أنتم أبغض الخلق إلي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, there's no one I hate more than you people. Because of their treachery and everything that we mentioned, the warfare that they waged against the Muslims, the alliances that they made with other people trying to starve the Muslims and kill the Muslims, them themselves going to war against the Muslims. After all of that, he says, Allah knows I hate you more than anyone. وَلَا يَحْمِلْنِي بُغْضِي إِيَاكُمْ. But my hatred of you doesn't cause me to oppress you. Doesn't cause me to harm you. What's he telling them? Basically, I hate you so much, I should be taking more. I should be forcing you to pay even higher of a tax because of the animosity between us, because of what you've done. I should be punishing you for that. That's how I personally feel. But that's not what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ commanded. He told me, come, take a certain percentage, that's all I'm doing. I won't hook you up and I won't harm you, even though that's what I want to do. I would like to take more, to punish you more for what you've done. But the Prophet ﷺ told me, take this much, I will not take a penny more or a penny less. And they said, بِهَذَا قَامَتِ السَّمَوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضِ. Thus, the heavens and the earth were established based on this justice and this truth. The rights going to where they belong. Standing up for them regardless of how you feel, what you stand to gain or what you stand to lose. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this will save you. To speak the truth no matter what the condition. And finally he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the third action of salvation is al-qasdu fil ghina wal faqr. To be moderate when you spend. To be moderate whether you have or don't have. Because most people, they either have, they're rich, they're wealthy, and so they're extravagant. They buy everything that they desire, they constantly spoil themselves and their families and their children, and they have no ability to be patient or to put things off or to not indulge and say, let's train our nafs to be calmer, to be more satisfied, to be more satisfied with what Allah gave us. They never do that, they just let it all go. Buy as much as you can, eat as much as you can, enjoy as much as possible. And that's harmful to the self. It ruins patience. It eliminates the ability to persevere through adversity. Or they don't have, and so they're stingy. They hold back. They say, I do not know where my next meal is coming from. I don't know where my next income is coming from. I can't give for the sake of Allah. I have to be miserly with myself and my family. Or they're in between, and they're just constantly distracted with getting more. They're middle class, they're not overly rich, they're not poor either, and they're just constantly occupied, consumed by the concept of amassing more and gathering more. So regardless of their situation, they're not moderate, they're not focused, and they're completely deluded by the state of their finances. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, salvation is in being moderate no matter what, whether you have or don't have. And moderation means intelligence, means to be economical, means not to be extravagant on yourself, means to give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give for the masjid, give for your children. It's a whole system. And he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when you're like that, it will save you. It will save you from making many mistakes. It will save you from performing a lot of sins in your wealth. It will save you from oppressing others, being with yourself and your family. So he told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 3 actions that will save you. Taqwa of Allah, fear and obedience of Him regardless of how you feel. Speaking the truth regardless of how you feel. And being moderate in your wealth regardless of whether you have or not. Then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَأَمَّا الْمُهْلِكَاتِ. Now as for the actions of destruction, the actions that will destroy you. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first of them is شُحٌ مُطَاعٌ, miserliness that is obeyed. Because you can have miserliness inside of you, cheapness. Right? Shuh is like being cheap, but more extreme. You can have that inside of you as a natural trait Allah created you with. You have it in different degrees. He's cheaper than him, and that's normal. But it makes a big difference if you choose to obey it or not. If you choose to make that characteristic that you have a deciding factor in your actions or not. That's up to you. That's why he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, shuhun muta', miserliness that is obeyed. Because if it's ignored and fought against, there's no blame on you. But if you obey it, if you make it a defining characteristic, it will destroy you. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what destroyed the previous nations, إِنَّمَا مَا أَهْلَكَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ. What has destroyed people that came before you was a shuh, miserliness. It commanded them to cut the ties of kinship, so they cut it. It commanded them to oppress one another, so they did so. And so they were destroyed. Because they were too keen on keeping things. Too keen on having. Too keen on amassing and having others witness that. That became a defining factor of their characteristics. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, شَرُّ مَا فِي الرَّجُلِ, the worst characteristics you can find in a man. شُحٌ هَالَى وَجُبْنٌ خَالَى, for him to have alarming miserliness. He's constantly being alarmed. He's constantly panicking about his wealth. Anytime it dips $1 less, he's in a state of panic. He gets more, he's still in a state of panic. It's not enough. So the most evil characteristic in a man would be this kind of panicky cheapness and cowardice that is not controlled, unrestrained, allowed to, again, prevent the person from their duties, from striving and struggling for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was narrated that Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, he entered upon a man on his deathbed. And when he entered upon him, the man kept staring into the corner of his home where he had a chest of wealth. And he said, يا أبا سعيد ما تقول في 100,000 في هذا الصندوق لم أؤدي فيها زكاة ولم أصل منها رحمة. Oh, Abu Sa'id, he's talking to Al-Hasan, what do you say? What is your opinion about 100,000 coins in this chest, with which I never spent a penny on zakah, and I never spent a penny to keep ties of kinship? Meaning it was not used in any good. I didn't pay zakah on it ever, and I never used it to keep ties between my family. What is your opinion? So he told him, تَكَلَتْكَ أُمُّكَ وَلِمَ جَمَعْتَهَا. May your mother lose you. What was the purpose then of gathering it? And this is a message to all of us. If you have wealth, it's not going for the sake of Allah. It's not keeping ties in your family. It's not making things better for your family. Why are you gathering it? This is Hassan asking the man, why then do you have it? What other purpose can there be to amass wealth if not for this good? What will you then gain from it? It will only be evidence against you. So the man says, I gathered it لِرَوَعَةِ الزَّمَانِ وَجَفْوَةِ السُّلْطَانِ وَمُكَاثَرَةِ الْعَشِيرَةِ. I gathered it so I can cement my authority. You can't have authority in the land without wealth. And I gathered it so I can have a good time, to enjoy myself, to live luxuriously, to live pleasantly, and so that I can have many children. He didn't keep the ties of kinship, he wanted all for his own kids. So this was his reasoning, and then he died. This was the final moment of his life. So Al-Hasan, he prayed his janazah, and they took him to the graveyard where they buried him. And then he told the people present at the burial, انظروا إلى هذا المسكين. Look at this poor, poor man. He just was talking about the 100,000 that he has. He's still poor. He's poorer than anyone else. He's poor in his heart. He's poor in his understanding. He's poor in his misguidance and in the way that he duped himself into ending his life in this fashion. So look at this poor man, and he continued at length, telling them, don't let this happen to you. Telling the inheritors, the family members are burying this man. This wealth is coming to you freely. You didn't sweat in it, you didn't tire in it. It just came to you from Allah as inheritance. So for you it's halal, you take it. But don't let the same ending happen to you. He gathered it for his family, for his authority. Where is that now? What will it do for him now? Miserliness drove him to this end. Don't let it be the same for you. Because the day of judgment, he said, is a day of regret. إن يوم القيامة يوم حسرات وأعظم الحسرات أن ترى مالك في ميزان غيرك. The day of judgment is a day of regret. Everyone will be regretting. And of the worst regrets, he said, he's telling the inheritors now, is that you see your wealth in the scales of someone else. They inherited it, they did it right. They gave for the sake of Allah. They were not overly attached. They didn't spend on haram. So they will be rewarded. But who worked for that wealth? You did. You produced it. You saved it. But you didn't use it correctly. So the inheritors, it will be in their scales. And of the greatest regrets he's telling them is to see your wealth that you toiled and sweat and fought for in the scales of others. Finally, he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the three acts of destruction now, they are the miserliness that is obeyed, that we touched on in speaking about moderation and wealth, and the desires that are followed, and for the person to be impressed by themselves. So first he said miserliness that is obeyed. We already touched on that with the story of the man who held back his wealth and the hadith where he sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us against miserliness and how it destroyed the people before us. So it's connected to the moderation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, وَمَنْ يُوكَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Whoever overcomes their own miserliness, whoever overcomes it, then they are of the successful. And it was narrated that one of the righteous seen one of the scholars making tawaf around the Kaaba, and every time that he'd run into him as making tawaf, he would say, Allahumma qini shuhha nafsi. Oh Allah, protect me from the shuh within me, the miserliness, the cheapness that is within me. So he told him, how come this is the only dua you're making? Why are you constantly making dua? And he told him, Inni in waqitu shuh. If I'm protected from shuh, waqitu dhulm. I'm protected from oppressing others. Wal qati'a, and cutting off the ties of kinship as well. And then shuh is included in there. So I'm asking Allah to protect me from that because He'll protect me from so much more. The second act that would destroy the person, he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, hawan muttaba. Desire that is followed. So miserliness that is obeyed and desire that is followed. Once again, everyone has desires. You don't have to follow it. You have to fight against it. You can strive to tame it. You can strive to control it. But if you follow it, he's telling us here, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it will destroy you. And Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says, the example of your nafs, your soul that you were created with, that has the base needs of food and drink and procreation. This is like a steed, an animal, that you are riding towards the hereafter. You're riding towards your meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reins with which you control this animal are the revelation, the Quran, the Sunnah, the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the teachings of the Sahaba. That is what will control this beast to the destination that you're going to. But if you do not have any reins on it, you leave your desire to be followed, to be obeyed, then it will misguide you. It will take you where it pleases, or it will buck you and you'll go flying. You do not know, but you will not get to the destination as you intended. So this is the reality, that all of us have a desire. All of us have desires within us. We have to choose not to follow them. Following them is destruction. And finally he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إعجاب المرء بنفسه, for the person to be impressed by themselves. Some people are impressed by how they look. Some people are impressed by their finances. Some people are impressed by their wealth or their home or their car or their family. Impressed by some kind of success that they produce, or impressed by some quality that Allah gave them, where they came from, the color of their skin, whatever it may be. You should never be impressed with yourself. You should be humble. You should lower your status. Don't be impressed with your worship. Don't be impressed that you come to the masjid. The credit belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. You becoming impressed with these things is a guarantee that you will either lose them or that they will be a source of regret instead of a source of blessing. This is the reality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of all good. We owe Him that, to be humble and to recognize. One of the righteous, he narrates that I had engaged in dhikr to the extent that I was impressed with myself. He's happy that he sat for an extent of time making dhikr, crying over the remembrance of Allah, coming closer. There's nothing wrong with being happy about it, with enjoying it. But he became impressed with it, meaning, I'm the man. I'm doing a lot. I'm presenting something notable and impressive and good. That's the level where we have to be careful. These are the thoughts we cannot entertain. Can enjoy doing it and be happy that you're doing good, that's great. But also be humble and recognize the blessing of Allah. Do not be deluded into thinking that you're greater than you are. So he says, I reached that state, unintentionally. It can creep up on you. It is hidden, as the Prophet taught us, like the black ant on a black rock on a black night. Undetectable, unnoticeable. It sneaks into your heart to be impressed with yourself, to be insincere, to show off. So he says that state afflicted me, and I went to a public bath to take a bath as they would back in the day. And when I finished, I exited, and I had taken a few steps, and then the guard of the bathroom, the guard of the public bath, came running out and he said, Sheikh, you took the shirt of the man inside. So he says, I looked down and I realized I wore the wrong self, so I went back to replace it, to take mine and to give back the man's who was waiting. And he says, I had barely left the public bath the second time until I found myself surrounded by the children of the neighborhood, all of them chanting, here's the thief, here's the thief. They're kids, they don't know better, right? They're just making fun of someone. But he said they surrounded me chanting the thief of the bathroom, Sariqu Thiyab al-Hammamat. And he says, I was so embarrassed and I realized that I wasn't humble when I should have been, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent me this to humble me. He didn't steal, right? He's innocent, but the situation was embarrassing. It was humbling. And this is what he realized. It brought him back to the fact that earlier I was impressed by my worship and now I'm being humbled. And it's also narrated that one of the righteous says, I was making tawaf around the Kaaba and I seen a man surrounded by men who were preventing other people from coming close. Whenever someone would come too close to him, they'd shove him. This man is VIP, you're not allowed to come close. Until he says sometime later, I was in Baghdad now, in Iraq, and I seen this man in the slums of Baghdad, leaning against a wall begging for charity. So I told him, weren't you that same man I saw a while back around the Kaaba that no one was allowed to touch? Weren't you that same VIP? And he said, yes, I was. That was me. So I told him, what happened? Why are you here now? What's the story? And he simply told him, I was in a high position through which some people use to come close to Allah and be humbled. You hear stories of the righteous like Umar radiallahu anhu, like the righteous leaders. When they got leadership, when they got authority, it made them more humble because they said, oh Allah, I don't deserve this. Oh Allah, I know this is a test, allow me to succeed, do not allow it to come to my head, do not allow it to come to my heart and then I ruin myself. This is the attitude that they had. So he says, I had a high position through which some people used to come closer to Allah and be more humble. But I didn't. I used it to be arrogant, to raise myself, to be impressed by my accomplishments. So because of that, Allah set me down to a low position through which some people used to come higher. Some people, when Allah lowers them, they lose some wealth, they lose some authority, they get humbled, they get embarrassed. Like the first story we mentioned with the guy at the bathroom. He took that situation and said, oh, I shouldn't have been arrogant, let me come closer to Allah, be humble, make istighfar. But this man said, Allah forced this humble situation upon me and I can't rise through it because it's too late, the test is over. The test has been failed. That's what he's realizing now. So he's saying, Allah gave me a high position that some people used to come closer, I didn't. So he gave me a low position that some people also used to come closer, but now I'm stuck here. So the point of the story is, humble yourself before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humbles you. Show Him that you are not impressed with your worship, you're not impressed with your accomplishments, you're not impressed with your creation. You recognize that all good is only from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whatever favors He bestows upon us are completely undeserved and a pure blessing from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Him to continue these blessings for us, to allow us to recognize the actions that save us, and to give us the tawfiq to do them, and to grant us the tawfiq to recognize the actions that destroy us, and to grant us the strength to avoid them. وَقُولُوا قَوْلِ هَذَا وَاسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لِي وَلَكُمْ فَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ إِنَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ba'd. Another point of benefit from the hadith is that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did not mention 6 random things. He's not just shooting off a random list. He's teaching us a very important lesson about these 6 things. And like I said earlier, I want all of us to place ourselves in these 6 concepts, these 6 categories. Find a situation where I had the taqwa of Allah, or I tried to and it benefited me, and you will find many. Or that I tried to speak the truth even when I was not happy, even when it was not in my favor. Or another time where perhaps I didn't speak the truth because it wasn't in my favor. And then this is the point of these kind of hadith. Evaluate yourself. Evaluate your life. See the actions that save you. Do you do them? And the actions that destroy you, do you do them? And analyze your life. So like we were saying, he did not randomly mention and list these things. There are actually 3 cures for 3 diseases. 3 solutions for 3 problems. So the first that he mentions, taqwa Allah fi sidr al-alaniyah, the piety and the consciousness of Allah, whether you're in public or in private, that is posed against hawa muttaba, desire that is followed. How do you save yourself from this destructive act? With this act of salvation. You will be saved from following your desire if you have the taqwa of Allah. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. As for the one who fears the standing in front of his Lord, and so he prevents himself from following the desires, then Jannah will be their abode. So fearing Allah comes with preventing oneself from desires. And the second thing that he mentioned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, الْقَوْلُ بِالْحَقِّ فِي الرِّضَى وَالسُّخْطِ, speaking the truth whether you are happy or angry, that is posed against the person being impressed with themselves. Because the person will only become arrogant, will only give themselves too much rights when they shortchange the rights of others. Because that's what i'jab al-mar'i bi nafsihi is. So you're impressed with yourself, to be arrogant, you're giving yourself too much right. You're pumping yourself up to a level higher than you deserve, higher than you belong. And that will only come by lowering others beyond what they deserve, harming them. So you will not speak the truth. You will be emotional. You will not give the rights as they are due, because you're giving yourself too many rights. You're being impressed with yourself, you're being arrogant. And lastly, he mentioned al-qasdu fil ghina wal-faqr, moderation in poverty and wealth, that is posed against what? Posed against shuhhun muttaba, miserliness that is followed. You only were miserly when you weren't moderate. Right? This one is obvious. You're only able to take more than you deserve and look at what others had when you weren't moderate in spending and giving and taking and withholding. So all of our lives, if you notice, this is another theme of the hadith, all of our lives, what I say and what I do, how I feel and how I act and how I react, all of it has to be in conjunction with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. This is the journey that I want to take. This is the path I want to embark on. And these actions that he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this hadith are like highlights. They're like roadmaps, markers on the road that show me I'm going in the right direction or heading in the wrong direction. So he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to close and to summarize, ثلاث المنجيات وثلاث المهلكات. 3 actions that will save you and 3 actions that will destroy you. فأما المنجيات, as for the actions that will save you, the acts of salvation, he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, تقوى الله في السر وفي العلانية والقول بالحق في الرضا والسخط والقسط في الغنى والفقر. Just fear Allah and obey Him as He deserves in public and in private. And to speak the truth whether you are happy or you are angry. And to be moderate in your spending whether you are rich or you are poor. وأما المهلكات, as for the actions that will destroy you, he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فشح مطاع وهوى متبع وإعجاب المرء بنفسه, for a person to follow their miserliness and to follow their desires, to obey their miserliness and follow their desires, and for the person to be impressed by himself. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to instill in ourselves and in our hearts the righteous qualities that will lead us to salvation, and to give us tawfiq to perform them purely for His sake. And may He instill in our hearts the hatred and the avoidance of the acts of destruction. And He may give us the awareness and the tawfiq in our lives to see them when they appear before us and to avoid them purely for His sake. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم وارحم الأموات. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. ربي آتي نفوسنا تقواها زكيها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. وصلى الله وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله